Hello YouTube University students, and welcome back to Opa's Garage. And in the garage today, I'm going to show you something that I just learned about changing the blend door actuator in my wife's 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. Now, changing the blend door actuator is a subject that several people here on YouTube have covered. But what I'm going to tell you is something that a lot of them don't mention, maybe because they don't know. But it's something very important. Let's get started. Okay, so this is your blend door actuator for the dual climate control in these Jeep Grand Cherokees. If you notice, there's a little spline right there, and if you notice on this one anyway, there's a little indexing arrow right there. And then on that post on these splines, there will be a gear like this, and normally this gear will have little teeth going up across here. And when yours breaks, it will look like this. The teeth will be missing. I'm not going to get into the details on how to replace the actuator. That's a subject that's been covered by at least a dozen people here on YouTube. You obviously have to remove the glove box and the panel behind the glove box on the passenger side. I don't know what you have to do on the driver's side. I haven't had to do that yet. But at any rate, once you get everything all opened up, your actuator is right there. And then if you look right back there, you can see the teeth that I was talking about that are normally on that gear. And the way you know that you probably have this problem, which is a very common problem with these Jeeps, is the dual climate control. If you have your passenger side, or if you have both sides set at the same, as far as if you have them both set on heat, you'll be getting good heat out of one side, you'll be getting mediocre heat out of the other side. Or in our case, we had it set on AC and we were getting nice ice cold air out of the driver's side, and we were getting warm air, at least warmer air, coming out of the passenger side. So I did some research. I kind of figured that this was the problem. I actually figured that the actuator was the problem. But discovered that, yep, it's a pretty common problem. It's normally the gear. It's about a $35 part through Chrysler. I would recommend getting Chrysler parts. But at any rate, when I took everything all apart, yep, the gear was all busted. So I bought a new gear, put it back on, put everything back together. As soon as I started the vehicle, I heard the new gear bust. And so I got in there, looked, and sure enough, the new gear, all the teeth were missing off of it. I took it all back apart. I laid the actuator right here where I could see it from the driver's seat, and then I turned the vehicle on. And as soon as I turned the vehicle on, noticed that the actuator, because I still had it plugged in, I noticed that the actuator shaft itself, instead of turning about 90 degrees and stopping, it would do a full 360-degree rotation, and then it would stop. And it would maybe wait 10 seconds, and then it would do a full 360-degree rotation again, and then it would stop. And I knew that it should not do that, because the blend door only, probably the gear for the blend door only turns probably about 90 degrees. And so at that point I thought, well, the actuator must be bad. I looked up the part number for this actuator and discovered it was not a Chrysler product. And so I went back to the Chrysler dealership and got me a Chrysler actuator, and I got me a new gear. And when I got back, I plugged the new actuator in with the new gear on it, and I laid it right here just to be on the safe side. And sure enough, when I turned the vehicle on, the new actuator, which is a Chrysler actuator, did the same thing. 360-degree rotation, then it would stop. 360-degree rotation, then it would stop. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe it needs to sense some resistance on the actual gear itself. Let me put that on there. And so as it was turning, the next time it started turning, I'm probably losing focus. As it was turning, I went ahead and I grabbed a hold of the gear to give it some resistance to see if it would stop and index itself, and it did not. So I did a little more research and discovered that occasionally, and this is the one thing that most of the people that make these videos don't mention, when they make the videos, all they mention is that when you put the new gear on, you need to make sure that it is indexed properly with the gear for the blend door. But what they don't mention is that sometimes these actuators need to be recalibrated. I don't know if it's only new actuators. I don't know if possibly that was what the deal was, and this one is still a good actuator. I don't plan on putting it back on to find out. But I discovered that you have to actually calibrate these. And to calibrate those, you need to have a scan tool. And you need to have a scan tool that has the actuator calibration program. So if you do not have a scan tool, and mine's an Autel scan tool, I don't remember what model it is. It's a newer model, it's a 9 something. But anyway, you need to have a scan tool that has the actuator calibration function. And if you don't have one, if you don't have a buddy that has one, then you are going to need to take your vehicle to a shop that has one, or take your vehicle back to the dealership to have your new actuator recalibrated. Now, when I calibrated mine, I indexed everything properly, and then instead of bolting it in there, I went ahead and just held it in place, and then I activated the actuator calibration function on my scan tool, and it turned about 90 degrees. Once it sensed some resistance, it stopped, and it waited a few seconds, and then it turned back about 90 degrees. Once it felt resistance, it stopped, and it did that 2 or 3 times, and then everything stopped moving. I looked over at my scan tool, and the scan tool said calibration complete, and I believe it does all the actuators, all the blend doors, all at the same time. So that's going to conclude this video, and until next time, keep living your best life. Get on out in the garage and fix something.